Hey y'all, welcome to the Mother May I podcast. Yeah. Yo, welcome to the Mother May I podcast. I'm your host, Whitney Johnson, and today we are talking about, matter of fact, have y'all ever heard people say it takes a village to raise children? But then you sit back and wonder, like, where do I apply to find this village that you speak of? Because the folk that I be around, this episode's for you. You need to stay tuned to this episode, and I'm so excited to get into today's topic because I can personally vouch for the fact that motherhood is not a one-person job. You definitely need somebody to support you and guide you through the hurdles, the ups and downs of motherhood. And I think that we have to normalize conversations about creating a village and creating a network of support so that we don't feel so overwhelmed and exhausted by all the demands of motherhood. And so today's topic is very important for me. If you've been following me for a long time, you know that I have my signature mother method, right? Which walks through the 5 steps that you need to overcome through the hurdles and difficulties that you face in motherhood. Today, I want to talk about that last letter in the mother method, which is the H. And the H stands for help. And the reason why I want to talk about this one is because this is our last episode before we jump into 2021. And one of the biggest things that I see a lot of moms and parents face a lot of times is they have so much on their to-do list. They have so many demands and so many things that need to be done, but they lack the support and they lack the ability to get it all done because they don't have a network of people to support them in getting it done. And so one of the things that I want to normalize is asking for help. And I talk about this a few episodes back. So if you haven't heard my personal story, feel free to go back. But I'm going to just briefly share what happened to me and what I learned from my experiences. I remember when I had just had my son, Aiden. I was just turning 21 years old, went from being the hot girl doing her own thing to now being a mother. I had no idea how much work it took. I had no idea that it was so demanding to take care of somebody else outside of myself. And eventually I got so consumed and overwhelmed with the demands of motherhood that I fell into postpartum depression and I was hospitalized for it. And one of the things that my mom and my family all asked me was, why didn't I tell them that I was going through this? And the reason why I didn't tell them that I was going through this is because I did not know how to ask people for help. And so when I created the mother method, one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize was the need to ask for help, because I feel like if I had had enough courage and enough vulnerability to actually ask for help, I probably could have avoided a lot of the things that I went through in the beginning stages of having my son back when I was 21 years old. And so I always tell moms that there's 3 things that I want you to know about asking for help. 1, you don't have to get it right. You just have to get it done. Right? So you can't be afraid of asking for help because you aren't in a position where you're supposed to get it all right. You're not in a position where you're supposed to be perfect Patty the parent. You're in a position where you are specifically designed and created to help support your children and evolve it into healthy human beings who can function independently and treat people with respect and live full lives. That's pretty much it. In a nutshell, right? So that's your position as the parent, is to be able to do that. Your position isn't to do that in a perfect way. Nobody said you had to do it perfectly. Nobody said you wasn't gonna make mistakes. Nobody said you wasn't gonna say the wrong thing or your house wasn't gonna be clean. Nobody told you that now. We ain't tell you that. We told you that you are the parent of these children. So the one thing that you have to eliminate from your mind is the need to always get it right and always be on, because it's not gonna happen. It's not even realistic. And so when we get into topics around help, I want you to remember this in your mindset when you go towards making decisions about asking for help or needing help. Remember, nobody's asking you to be perfect, but if you need support, you have an obligation to stand up and ask for that support so that you can be the parent that your children ultimately need you to be. Second thing about help that I want to put out there is that You don't have to be in such a rush. You have to trust divine timing. You have to trust your faith. You have to trust that God is uniquely designing your life in a way that supports you getting to where He has divinely asked for you to be. So no matter what you try to do or how you try to move it this way and do this thing and all these other things, those things aren't going to matter because you already have a divine assignment over your life, whether you believe it or not. And so you trying to rush it or speed past it or get through it a whole lot quicker isn't going to support you in getting to where you want to go. Because you'll get there when it's time for you to get there. You have to trust in divine timing. And you have to trust and have faith that God is going to lead you to where He said that you gonna go. Right? There's a second thing about help that I want y'all to know. Third thing about help that I want y'all to know. Surrender does not equal to being weak. Surrendering and being weak are not the same thing. And when I say surrender, let me be very clear. When I say surrender, I don't mean throwing a white flag and be like, I'm done, I can't do this no more. That's not what I mean. What I mean by that. It's surrendering to the fact that you don't have to always do it all. It's surrendering to the fact that you don't have to live up to the expectations of other people. It's surrendering to the fact that you are not supposed to be perfect and being okay with that. None of that shit makes you weak. None of that makes you weak. In fact, it helps propel you into the parent that your children need you to be. But you have to be able to have these 3 types of mindset shifts within your mind before you can even ask or receive help. It's not even going to come until you get into the mental headspace of reprogramming your views and outlooks on help. Help is not a bad thing. And that's why it's so important in the mother method. You gotta ask for help. There's no way in the world you can do it all on your own. And if you are doing it on your own, you're most likely going to run into some burnout. Period. You weren't designed to be able to do it all. Now, you are uniquely created to be the parent of these children, but you are not created to do it all. And you can take that right on off your chest now. Take that S off your chest and put an M on that and be the best mother you can be for your kids. Because being superwoman is not something you need to live up to. It is not. You don't even have to live up to that to be a good mom. We have to be able to make sound decisions that support our family in moving forward. You cannot make those type of decisions if you are being analytical and focused on things that don't support you in getting help and moving your family forward in the way that you want them to go. And so in order to do that, I like to walk you through the FBI method. My FBI method helps you go within. It helps you stop thinking outside the box and really start to tap in. And I think that if we used our intuition not to scope and find out what everybody doing on social media, but to focus on our own shit, we may be able to get somewhere. And so let me just briefly explain to y'all what I mean by my FBI method, right? I'm gonna use myself as an example, right? So I have a 10-year-old, right? He loves Fortnite. That's his thing, right? And so when he's playing Fortnite, if I need him to do something, I immediately call him and I want him to come here right now. That's how I was raised. When somebody call you, get your ass in there and you listen to what they say, right? That's what I was raised on. And so I adapted those same principles with my child, right? When I call you, get your butt in here, I called you to do something. And so the other day I had asked them, I think I was upstairs or something, I don't know. And I asked him to come here and it took him a while and I was just like, what did I tell you? Then I just instantly started going off, right? And so in those moments, I had to stop. After it all said, after I had went all off and did all the most, I told my son, I said, give mommy some time. Because when I ask for that time, I'm finna step into FBI time. And I'm going to start analyzing and focusing in on the woman within. It's time to figure out why that triggers me so much. It's time to figure out why that bothers me so much that he didn't come right away. It's time for me to really get honest with myself. So the FBI method walks you through 3 steps. FBI, right? So you have the F, which is finding. During this step, I want you to start finding out what it is that is triggering you. Why are you so upset about this? Why does this make you so angry? Why? What happened? Really starting to ask yourself and get clear on the situation at hand, right? Then after you've done that, the next letter is B. And the B in FBI stands for build up. I want you to figure out what things have triggered to all of this being built up. What things are triggering this to build up to where it is right now? Start asking yourself, why did I yell about that? Why do I need him to come right here, right now? And why do I feel offended when he don't? Is that really disrespect, or is he trying to finish what he doing the same way I'm trying to finish something like cooking and I tell them to hold on for a second? So I start asking myself those questions, right? I start going in, start tapping into myself, not putting it on my kids, not projecting my fears, my anger, my confusion on them. Start asking myself, why am I so bothered? And then after I do that, I start to ignite a new thing in myself. And when we ignite, I want you to think about the pros and cons of continuing to live life in this way. I want you to think about the pros and cons of continuing to live your life in this way. Think about, for my example, once my child turns 20 and 30 years old, right? Let's say he's 30 years old, and I ask him to come over to my house for dinner and he's late. Am I going to view that as disrespect, or am I going to be more understanding to the fact that he has children and things have changed and all these other things, right? So you have to think about how important it is to start working on these behaviors and things that trigger you now, so that you can show up and be the parent your children need you to be down in the long run. Because these same situations are going to happen again in life, but they're going to happen in different forms. And if you aren't able to face them and deal with them and analyze them and decide whether or not you want to keep living like this or not, then you'll continue to repeat the cycle over and over again. And you'll continue to be frustrated over and over again. And you won't be able to find your happiness or create a village of support within motherhood. Because there's too much shame that you haven't dealt with. There's too much guilt and confusion. You have to first start analyzing why things are triggering you, so that you can show up and be a better version of yourself for your children. And so if you take anything from this episode, I want you to really understand the importance of analyzing your emotions when it comes to things that trigger you between you and your children. And you can use my FBI method. Feel free to use it. Find out, build up, and ignite. And if you're in the motherhood circle, I'm going to also hop into there and explain to you guys how it works and get more detail into it over in the motherhood circle. So if you haven't already joined us there, you'll be able to find out more information about the FBI method and how that works. But I really want for you guys to understand how these things relate, the importance of it, and be able to use this as a tool to help support you through finding and creating your own village. Because once you're clear on what you need, you won't have trouble with finding what you want. Okay? So that's this week's episode. As usual, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you hop on into the motherhood circle, because I'm going to also be adding some resources that support you through parenting that you may find beneficial, that go along with this episode. So if you haven't already, go to the motherhood circle. I'll meet you there, and I'll see you next week for another episode of the Mother Made Up podcast. Bye, y'all.